In this video, I'm going to show you how to find a public file on Onshape and how to then edit that public file. So this could be useful if someone's already drawn something similar to something that you want to make and you just want to make some small edits to it. So for example, with my Year 11 class, I have a basic cabinet design that I've drawn up, and I get students to modify that basic cabinet design and turn it into a cabinet that they would like to make, which involves students having to add features to that cabinet. So to start with, they just need to do the basic carcass of the cabinet, adding things like shelf, drawer, dividers, those sorts of things, and selecting joinery. And later on down the track, they can go on to designing things like the doors for the cabinet, things like how they're going to mount it on the wall, something like a French cleat system. So in this video, I'm going to go through how we can use the public library of things that have been drawn on Onshape to go search for an existing file. I'm going to search for that cabinet file that I've already made and made public for my Year 11s, and then go through some basics of editing someone else's document. All right, so to start with, we're going to, on the left-hand side here, this is the main menu you see when you first log into Onshape. We're going to go down to this Public tab, and you'll see there are a whole heap of existing drawings. Now you could search for just about anything in here. I'm going to search in up here in the search bar, dartboard cabinet, Year 11 student copy. And that should take us directly to the file that I myself have created for my Year 11 class. So I'm going to start by clicking on that file. The file's going to open up. Once it's opened up, I'm going to get this pop-up up the top straight away. At the moment, I can only view this. So I could click through all the tabs, have a good look at everything, but none of the tooling for Onshape is available. I can't make any edits to it. So the first thing I need to do to be able to make changes to it is to click on this, make a copy to edit. It's then going to allow me to change the name of it. So I'm just going to call it Mr. Wright Dartboard Cabinet, as that's what I'm going to draw for my cabinet design. Depending on the kind of cabinet, you might give it a different name. At the moment, the name's not too much of an issue. So give it a name so you recognize what it is. It's going to be copied to your Owned by Me folder. I'm going to click on Open. There's no additional folders in here. We can just copy it in here. If you wanted an additional folder, you could add it into a separate folder if you've got one there. So I'm going to click on Copy here. It'll make a copy of this entire document and all of the part studios and assemblies that you see. It might take a bit of time to load up as it's literally copying all of that data into a format that you can now edit. Now, if I go for a bit of an explore through this document, so just a reminder for zooming in and out, I can use the scroll feature. So if I've got a mouse scrolling away from yourself, we'll zoom in. Scrolling back towards yourself, we'll zoom out. Same thing with a trackpad. So if you are putting two fingers on the trackpad at the top and dragging downwards, that will zoom in wherever you've placed your mouse. And two fingers on the bottom of the trackpad, dragging to the top, will zoom you back out. All right. You can also use our little rotator tool for the camera up in the top right hand corner. All right, you can click on different areas of this cube and it will spin you around to different views of each part. Okay. So to start with, I'm going to navigate through and have a bit of a look at each of the different parts that already exist in this file. So I've got a basic top and bottom. I've got some basic sides. I've got a mitered top and bottom, or a bottom and a mitered top. Slightly different. I've got a mitered left and a mitered right. Okay. I then also have a backboard that's been created for the mitered version. Got a French cleat that's drawn in here, which we can come back to a little bit later. and I've got a basic carcass assembly. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to rename that because it's actually not a basic carcass assembly, it's the mitered version. So I'm going to right click on that tab down the bottom, click on rename, and I'm going to rename that to mitered carcass. Now, this is a very basic cabinet carcass. It doesn't have any features at the moment. So right now it's really only good for if you wanted to sort of hang something up in it. It doesn't have any shelves, doesn't have any drawers, it doesn't have any real features about it that could be used for storage of items. So the first thing I generally like to do is draw a small sketch on paper with those features that I'm looking at adding. And then once I've got that sketch with some basic dimensions and spacings and things, I can then use that sketch to help me come in here and add those features to this cabinet. So we're not actually going to edit this assembly. This assembly will stay on its own. We're going to go in and edit each individual part by going and clicking on those tabs along the bottom here, editing the part. And once you edit that part, it will automatically update here in this assembly. So I'm going to be adding a shelf that runs directly across the bottom here, about 100 millimeters up. I'm also going to add a little divider in that shelf to divide the shelf, or this little area down the bottom, into two separate parts. So we're just going to do that to start with using housing joints. Okay, so as you can see on these parts, each of them already has a groove to house the backboard. Okay, so I know exactly where the backboard's going to sit, so I can draw my housing directly into it. So let's start with the left-hand piece. So to edit the piece, if I want to see what it's sort of going to look like in this assembly, I can left-click on that particular piece. And in the menus here, I've got this option here that says Edit in Context. So if I click on Edit in Context, it actually leaves that part, takes me to the part studio. So you can see here, left side mitered. Okay, it leaves it in the same orientation that it's supposed to be. And I can see very subtly, all right, that I've got these slightly hidden other features. Okay, and I can make edits to this and see exactly what it's going to look like in the overall carcass. So to add in my shelf, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer. I'm going to need to add my housing joint in here, and I'm going to do a stopped housing joint, which means the housing will not go all the way to this edge. It's going to stop. I'm going to make it stop 10 millimeters short. Okay, and then we'll have the shelf have a little notch in it that hides that housing joinery. So first thing we need to do when editing, we need to click our sketch option up in the top left hand corner here, and we're going to click on the face of the piece that we want to edit. So that's this bit here. I want to do some drawing here of a 2D shape of the area that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to click on that. I'm then going to use my offset tool. The offset tool allows us to draw a line parallel to another one. So that's this tool just here. Its keyboard shortcut is O. So you can either click on it or press O on your keyboard. You're then going to select the line you want to draw one parallel to. So I was just saying I want my stopped housing joint to be 10 millimeters in from that line. So if I click on it, I get this arrow up here. That's the direction that I'm going to draw an offset line. If I click on it, it changes direction. So I want to make sure that it's going back in towards the cabinet. I then click somewhere else, okay, and it gives me the option to say how far I want this offset line to be. So I said 10 millimeters, so I'm going to type in 10 and press enter, and you can see it's drawn a line the whole way up this piece that's 10 millimeters in. Don't worry about the fact the line goes all the way up. It's going to disappear after we finish putting in the rest of the details and finish the joinery. All of the lines that don't appear as part of the joinery will all disappear. You won't see them unless you come back to edit it. So I've got that offset line. I also said I wanted the shelf to be 100 millimeters up from the bottom. So if I click on the bottom here, I want to go up 100 millimeters. Okay, so there's that there. I then know that my material I'm using is 19 millimeters thick. So I'm going to need another offset line from that line up the thickness of my material, so 19. If your material was 12, you'd do 12. If it was 25, you do 25, and so on. So whatever the thickness of your material is, that's the amount you need to take away for this stopped housing joint. So I'm going up 19. So I now have this rectangle just here. That's where my stopped housing joint is going to go. Okay, so once it's complete, I can tick that sketch. All right, and this is the rectangle I'm going to be getting rid of half of the overall material to show that stopped housing. To do that, right next to the sketch button, I've got my extrude button. It's Shift E is the keyboard shortcut, or you can just click on it. Once you click on it, we have a whole heap of options. I'm not going to go through all the options. The main options we're going to use are the add or remove options. So if I click on that rectangle, the default is for it to try and add something. I don't want to add here. I'm making a housing joint. That's where we route and we take away some material. So I'm going to click on remove because I want to take it away. I then need to tell it the depth. How much am I taking away? So I know that material's 19 millimeters thick. So I'm going to take away half of that. So half of 19 is 9.5. If I press enter, it will give me a rough idea of what it's going to look like. Okay, if I'm happy with that, I hit my tick, and I can now see if I spin around, okay, I've got that housing joint. All right, now in our actual constructed version of this project, that housing joint, being a stopped housing, is going to have to actually come all the way in through from the back. So it'll actually be a little section back here that'll be removed as well that we route through to there if you did it as a stopped housing. I'm not going to worry too much about that on this particular drawing. That's fine. So I've done the stopped housing on one side. I'm happy with that. I can now go back to the main assembly, which was that button that we had up the top there, and you can see the stopped housing joint is in place. Okay, now if I want to spin around to look at the other one, I now need to do that same housing on this right hand one. Okay, and regardless of how many of these shelves you're putting in, so if you were doing a unit that had 4 or 5 shelves in it, okay, we would need to do that same process. The only thing that might change is you might have to do a little bit of math to work out how to evenly space those individual housings, which is what I'm going to show you on the other side. So I'm going to go through how we could do multiple shelves and not have to do too much math for spacing them. So same thing I did as before. I'm going to right click on the item that I want to edit. I'm going to click edit in context so that it keeps it in this same context so I can see what the part looks like finished. Okay, I'm then going to use my sketch tool again because I want to sketch the shapes I need onto this face. Now, this time I'm going to use the line tool instead. All right, so what I need to do this time is I'm going to draw the amount of segments that I want to have. All right, so if I'm doing 4 shelves, for example, I'm going to need 5 segments. Okay, so however many shelves there are, the amount of segments you need to do is always 1 more. So that'll make a little bit more sense in a minute. So I'm going to grab my line tool. I'm going to do 4 shelves. So I'm going to start in one corner and I'm going to just work my way up, and the distances I put here don't matter. I'm just going to make sure that I click. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and the last one I'm going to go all the way to the corner. Okay, I'm then going to deselect the line tool. Okay, so you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 6 segments. So I've done 1 too many. Okay, so if I want 4 shelves, I need to do 5 segments, so I've done 1 too many. So if I've made a mistake, I can use Control Z or undo, and the undo's up in the top left hand corner here. I can undo, I'm just hitting Control Z until I get rid of those lines. I can try again. So from the corner, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Deselect the line tool. So let's check that. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 segments, and there should only be 4 dots. So 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot, 4 dot. So you can see at the moment they're not perfectly spaced. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to select each of these individual lines, and we're going to use a tool that is going to space them out nicely for us. Okay, the tool that we're going to use for that is this one here, our equal tool, or its keyboard shortcut is E. I've already highlighted them all, so when I hit the equal button, okay, or if I pressed E on the keyboard, you can see now all of these lines, okay, are all now exactly the same length. Okay, they're all of equal length. So now I can do exactly what I did on the other side to draw my stopped housings. This time though, I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Okay, so that offset tool, again, O on the keyboard, or that tool just there up the top. Okay, I'm going to start from this line here, going inwards. Okay, I'm going to go 10 millimeters. All right, and you can see it's only done it for that segment. All right, so I should have done it first. Or if I undo that completely, all right, if I select all of them, I should be able to do an offset going in that direction, 10 millimeters, and it's now the entire length of the line. Okay, and it still has reference points for where those dots are. Okay, zoom out and zoom back into a better view. Now what I need to do is work out how big each of my housings are. Okay, so it needs to be a 19 millimeter opening. So that means I need half of the housing above this dot and the other half below. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to use my line tool. Okay, I'm going to click on this dot here, and I'm going to go up and click again. Now I've got this window here come up in white, and I can type in 9.5, press enter. I could then start drawing down in the other direction and click, and I can type in 19 back the other way. And we can now see I've got 2 dots that are each end of my housing joint. Okay, from that one I just drew, all right, I can deselect or the circle tool that's automatically selected there. I can reselect the line tool or press L. I can then click that dot and draw a parallel line. Now I don't want to draw a diagonal one, so I need to deselect the line tool or press L again, and draw one back the other way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and very quickly draw all of those. So again, up 9.5, down 19, then I draw my line directly across to the back. The dotted lines mean that it is perpendicular, right, at 90 degrees to the line that it's coming from. Okay, so that's what we want. That's square. Same this way. Okay, go down and do the next one. So up 9.5, down 19, perpendicular line across, another perpendicular line across. Okay, one more to go. Up 9.5, down 19, perpendicular line across, deselect the line tool, reselect it, perpendicular line across. So I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4 stopped housing joints, right, all marked out. I can now tick my sketch, and now I just need to put the depth in that we're getting rid of. So that's our extrude tool or Shift E. And I'm going to go in and I can select all of these at once because I'm doing the same thing to all of them. I'm going to click on remove. I need to remove half, which is 9.5. Okay, press enter, and tick. So you can see now I've got 4 openings, okay, for if I wanted to do 4 shelves. Okay, if I wanted to do the same thing on the other side, I would do the same thing on the other side, exactly the same, just on this part. Okay, now I'm very quickly, just so I can show you how to add the actual shelf, I'm going to very quickly get rid of everything I just did on this part. So again, I can show you how we go back and delete something. So all of the stuff that I've done, these are all the features of this part. So I've got the original drawings, okay, and I've then got my sketches that I've started to do, starting from here, sketch 5 and 6. So sketch 5 and extrude 6. If I right click on that, I can delete that sketch, which now the extrude has no reference, so it's gone as well. So I'll right click and delete that. Okay, so now it's back to the same part it was. So I'm very quickly going to sketch what I did on the original one. So by clicking on the face, use my offset tool. So I need to come up 100, and then the offset tool again, up 19, offset tool again, in 19, no, not in 19, in 10, sorry. Okay, accept it. And I'm going to extrude and remove my 9.5 millimeters and accept. So now both of my sides are exactly the same. Okay, I'm now going to go back to the assembly. So now that I've got my stopped housing, okay, I need to work out how big is the piece that I need to draw for the shelf that's going to go into that position. So to do that, I can use, in the bottom right hand corner here, I've got my measure tool. It's this tape measure looking icon. If I click on that, I can go and click on any individual part or line, right, particularly lines, and I can get measurements for them. So the first thing I want this distance from the inside edge here to the inside edge here, because I know the 9.5 millimeters of depth I have on this side, and on this side they add up to 19. So whatever I get for this bottom line here, I just have to add 19 to that, and that's the overall length of my shelf. Okay, and I'm going to have my scrap little sketch down in front of me so I can write some values down. So I'm going to click on this line, all right, and you can see down here in the measure section, I've got a length of 532 millimeters. So my shelf needs to be 532 plus 19, which 532 plus 9 is 541, plus 10 is 551. So that is one measurement I needed. I can then click away. I now need to know this measurement from the front of the cabinet to the backboard. And remember, I'm going to have to cut a little notch out of it for my stopped housing joint, but I need to draw the piece as a whole as that full depth. So I'm going to click on that line, and I can see down the bottom here that that's 78. So I need to draw a piece that is 551 by 78, and the thickness is 19. So I'm going to zoom back out. That's going to mean I need to create a new Parts Studio. So down in the bottom left-hand corner here, I've got Insert New Tab. I'm going to click on Create Parts Studio. So we're now going to draw a part from scratch. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on this new Parts Studio I've been put into. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it Shelf, and I'll give it a little description, notch for housing. To start with, I'm going to select my sketch. I'm going to start with a 2D drawing of my 551 by 78 millimeter shelf, and then I'm going to add that 19 millimeters of thickness with my extrude tool. So I'm going to click on this top view because I want to be looking down on it. I'm going to use the center point rectangle tool, which is R for the keyboard shortcut. Click in the center. I'm going to start to drag out a rectangle. The measurements don't matter at the moment. I'm going to type them in after I click. So I click. The long measurement I said was 551. I press enter. zoom out a bit. The short measurement was 78. I press enter. I've now got the 2D shape of what I need. I can tick that. I'm then going to extrude. So I'm going to select the whole thing and I'm going to have it as a new extrusion. It needs to be 19 millimeters thick. And I'm going to accept. Now I need to take the little corner notches out of this. Okay, so I know the corner notches were 10 millimeters in from this front edge. Okay, and I know that it's 9.5 millimeters in from this edge. So I'm just going to use my offset tool in my sketch. So I'm going to sketch on the top here. Use my offset tool to come in 9.5 in that direction. Enter. I'm going to come in. Helps if I click on the offset tool first, or use O on the keyboard. Click here, go in 10 millimeters, and I need to do the same on this other side. So use the offset tool again and come in. So I'm going to reverse it so it's going inwards. 9.5. Enter. And I'm going to accept that. Now the notches I'm cutting out are these little rectangles here. So I'm going to use my extrude tool to remove, zoom out so I can click on the rectangles I need. I need to get rid of that one, and I need to take away the full depth, which was 19. Click on my tick to accept. So I've now got my proper shelf that I'll be able to use in that assembly. Now I'm going to very quickly show you how to add it into the assembly. So I'm going to go back to my mitered carcass. Up in the top left-hand section of our assembly, we've got the insert option. That's where we can pick any of our existing parts and we can insert them into the current assembly. So I'm going to click on insert and I'm going to go and look for, there it is, shelf notched for housing. So I'm going to click on it and it appears. So I'm just going to click next to the cabinet for now and close off the insert menu. Whoops. I want to restore that. Give it a minute. Should have hit the tick, not the cross. The tick accepts what I've put in. If I hit the cross, it deletes anything that I've put in. Now I need to move this shelf into this carcass. So what I need to do is I need to pick a point on the carcass where the shelf is going to be touching a corner. Okay, so this corner here is going to be touching this corner here, all right, of the shelf when it's assembled. So what I need to do, I need to use my fastened mate tool. Okay, I click on that. I'm going to go and click on that corner I just said, and I'm taking note of, we see the blue, green, red lines. We want the blue line to be facing upwards, or whatever direction that blue line is facing. It needs to be facing the same way, in the same orientation when we click on the other point. Otherwise, it's going to put it in all lopsided. So I'm going to show you on purpose what happens if you do that. So instead of the blue line up, I'm going to move my mouse around and get that blue line. So see how it's pointing to the left now? I'm going to click. I'm then going to come over to my cabinet and see how the blue line's pointing up. If I click now, see how it's completely changed the orientation of that shelf, and it's not where I want it to be. So that's incorrect. I need to take note of the orientation of that green, blue, red axis. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to click my fastened mate tool, taking note of the axes. So I've got blue facing up. I'm going to click in that corner. Then going to zoom in, taking note of the axes. I want blue up. I'm going to click in that corner. All right, and it's put it in my carcass. Now, I've selected the wrong corner. I've selected the top corner to go to the bottom section of the housing. So it's not actually sitting in the housing. It's currently fouling. So for now, I'm just going to tick so I can show you the easiest way to check if it's in the right spot and if it's running into something. I can highlight, close my fasten tool. I can highlight this whole assembly, right click it, and I can click on check interference. That then tells me these parts are fouling, and if I move this menu, it highlights in red where they're fouling. So I can see that shelf is pushing into these sides. It's not going into the stopped housing. So I'm going to close that off. I'm going to go back and delete that fastening. I'm going to move the shelf back out here for a minute, and we're going to do that again. So fasten. This time I'm going to use the top, click, and instead of this bottom section, it actually wants to join there, making sure that blue line's pointing up like it was before. Click. All right, now that looks correct. Click my tick button. Now you can see my shelf is in place. I'm going to quickly check, closing my fasten tool, and quickly highlight and check for any interference. Okay, and you can see this time we have no interferences. Okay, so it's sitting inside that stopped housing that it's supposed to. Okay, now if you wanted to add more shelves, the process is exactly the same. If you wanted to add a divider in the center here or multiple dividers, the process would be the same. So the aim of this task for my Year 11 class is to essentially decide on the layout of the inside of their cabinet. How many shelves do they want? Do they want dividers in there? Do they want the dividers to be central? So using stopped housing joints, drawn the way I've just showed, using the offset tool and extruding, and then making a shelf to fit, we can add them. Now, if I did that option where I drew the 4 shelves in, okay, I don't need to draw 4 different shelves. I could just keep inserting that same notched shelf. I can click, and I can just keep inserting that same shelf, and then tick, and then just fasten them into their individual places. So I would only have to draw that shelf once, and the same goes all the time with Onshape. You only have to draw a part again if it is unique in some way to another part. Okay, so I hope that video is helpful in helping you to modify someone else's design and add features to this cabinet. Thank you.